Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Military Spouse to Millionaire. I apologize in advance for the lighting. I'm back in my podcast room, and I was so excited to be in like a controlled space with like my big ring light and all the things. And I set all the settings, and I sit down, and quite literally, clouds just descended on Eva Beach, and now it is pouring rain outside. So my perfect balance of natural light and ring light and fluorescent pink light behind me is now all out of whack. We are here today to talk about who the hell all the people involved in your real estate transaction are. I deal a lot with first-time home buyers, but even if you're not a first-time home buyer, the number of hands in the pot, so to speak, when you're doing a real estate transaction can be a little daunting. And it's very important to know and understand who everybody is, what their lane is, what they're there for, what they're not there for. And I think it just helps you as a consumer know where to appropriately place your questions. And of course, me as the real estate agent, I think that I'm kind of the catch-all because I'm normally the one that has the longest standing and strongest relationship with my clients, which is perfect. That's exactly how I want it. That's by design. That's my goal, very much my business model. I am that person for all of my clients. But then I also feel kind of bad sometimes because they reach out to me with, hey, I need this, or hey, what about that? And while I can normally tell them the answer just because I've been doing this for so long and done it so many times personally, there are some things, especially things when it comes to the title paperwork, especially things when it comes to lending. You guys, my real estate license does not allow me to quote or tell you as a consumer what interest rates are and things in that wheelhouse. So when someone asks me, like, hey, what's my interest rate going to be? Number one, you have to be pre-approved to know really what your interest rate is. I can tell you roughly what my husband, Clayton, who is a mortgage broker, I can tell you roughly what he's been quoting people, what he's been locking people at, but that's not Bible. That's not like the for real, this is what you're going to get answer, especially if I'm talking to you months before you get here. My license as a real estate agent doesn't allow me to discuss certain things, just like Clayton's license as a mortgage broker doesn't allow him to discuss certain things in a official capacity. Same thing with home inspectors, same things with the title company. So let's just unpack a little bit who the hell everybody is and what their roles are, what their lanes are, and how we all work together. The goal is, we're your team, we're your life raft, we're your boat on this adventure. So we're here to support you, and we all work together. But knowing where to place your questions can make you feel like a more empowered consumer. So let's start with me, moi. I am your real estate agent. I am here to talk to you about the real estate market, trends, predictions, historical data, what credits we can ask for, or if it's a more aggressive seller's market, like what over asking price we might need to do, or what things we can put into our offer to make it look more appealing and more aggressive. That is my job. I help you search for the homes. Me as a real estate agent, I obviously talk a ton with my clients about the move here and all of that kind of stuff, but those are just fringe benefits of my brand specifically. But if we're talking about my tasks as a real estate agent, things like discussing your home inspection and what things we can request as far as repairs or credits, that's very much my lane. Those are like the major things. So then now let's talk about your lender. So as a buyer, you're going to work with a lender. It doesn't always have to be my husband. I work with buyers who choose not to work with Clayton. Not very often, but it does happen. So whomever your lender is there to do your pre-approval. So you're going to send them all of your financial information, your tax information, your LES, your orders coming to Hawaii, bank statements. They have a certain set of documents that they need to do your pre-approval for your VA loan, assuming that you're a military family and that you're using your VA loan. If you're using a different type of loan, then obviously they're going to be pre-approving you for that type of loan. So assuming you're using your VA loan, Your lender is going to gather all of that. They're then going to send you a credit authorization form. This is a topic for another podcast, but just quickly, yes, guys, yes. If you are getting pre-approved for a home loan, which in Hawaii, you're buying probably a house that's close to $500,000. Without question, you need to have your credit run. It is not negotiable. No lender, no bank out there is going to give you $500,000+ without checking your credit. It is a non-negotiable thing that happens, and that's fine. It's not going to drop your credit score 50 points or anything crazy, but yes, if you're getting pre-approved for a home loan, your credit's getting a hard pull. So the lender pulls your credit, they look at your debt to income ratio, your credit scores, your payments, all that kind of stuff. They're going to spit out, hey, you're pre-approved for this much. It's not based on how much housing allowance you're getting here in Hawaii. Obviously that factors into like your pay and how much you make a month, but I have people all the time that get pre-approved for way more than what their housing allowance can support, which is why I tell people at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me the amount you get pre-approved for. It matters to me what price point we can shop in that accommodates a monthly payment that's comfortable for you. I don't care if you get pre-approved for $1 million. If you're, an E6 or an O3 or whatever, I'm going to look at what your housing allowance is. Like I say O3 because I was just literally texting with someone who's an O3. Housing allowance is $4,200 a month. They're going to want to shop probably $730,000 or less to accommodate their entitlements here. So to keep their housing expenses within their entitlements, 730 or less, even if they get pre-approved for $1 million, I don't care. But once the pre-approval is done, then your lender is able to say, hey, this is what you qualify for. I'm then able to say, okay, that's what you qualify for, but if you want your payments to be within your entitlements, we need to scale that down, and that's the price point that we typically end up shopping within. So that's a big way that your real estate agent and your lender are going to work together. Other things that your lender is responsible for, telling you what the monthly payment is going to be on the property. They can run what's called an amortization chart and tell you, hey, after 3 years, this is how much you're going to owe on the property. They do things like locking your interest rate. So I know Clayton is constantly watching the market. And if he feels that it's going to go up or go down or shift, he will not lock somebody's loan immediately, especially if we're in a long contract. And he will watch the market because interest rates are fluctuating daily, which is also why when people ask, like, what are the interest rates? Well, and sometimes they change throughout the course of the day, not in big swings. We're not talking about we woke up and they were 6% and we're going to bed and they're 7%, or vice versa. It's not extreme like that, but minor, small things, adjustments in the market sometimes happen daily. So that is Clayton's lane, to monitor, to watch that, to be communicating with you about that. He's also, once we get into contract as a lender, he's going to send you what's called upfront or initial disclosures. People call me all the time after getting these documents with questions. You guys, those aren't my documents. I can't tell you anything about those documents. You need to call Clayton. He's normally pretty good about shooting a text when he sends them, giving you a heads up that he's sent them and letting you know if you have questions to reach out. But people still, again, just come back to that point of contact that they are kind of most established with. And that's me, and that's fine. But I'm going to tell you to talk to Clayton because those are his documents. I can't legally discuss those with you because they're not real estate documents. They are mortgage or lender documents. And so he'll send those, and that's his lane to discuss those with you. He's also in charge of scheduling your signing. He's going to be there to sit down and talk to you about all of the documents that you're signing at closing. And he goes over all of that with you. So that's largely the lender. So far we've talked about your real estate agent, your lender or mortgage broker. The next person I want to talk about, because really there are 4 major people that we're going to be discussing. And then there are sort of like sub like a subcategory of people that are still very important, but their roles, I think, are a little more clearly defined. So less important to talk about on the podcast. Title and escrow. This is huge. These people do so much, and in my opinion, are largely the like unsung heroes of real estate. Our escrow officer does the most for every single one of my transactions and makes my life unbelievably easy. So shout out Nara if you're listening. I just think that it doesn't get talked about enough, the role of title and escrow. So basically, what title and escrow or the escrow company or escrow officers do is that escrow or title is the neutral third party that gets all of the documents from the buyer side, from the seller side, and they make sure that the home gets transferred from the seller to the buyer with the city and county of Honolulu here in Hawaii, but wherever you're at, if you're in Colorado Springs, if you're in Texas, wherever, the title company talks to whatever city and county you're in, and it's their job to get the home conveyed from the seller's name into the buyer's name, making sure that there are no liens or judgments on the title, no issues that would be passed on from the seller to the new buyer. And it's their job to sort of do all of the prorations. So they're going to get a hold of the seller's lender. They're going to request a payoff. They're going to make sure that all the numbers balance and that everybody is getting or paying what they should be. They really do so much behind the scenes. And again, they will send you an opening escrow packet once we are in contract, and people immediately, hey, how do I hold tenancy? How do this? How do that? Even my sellers with like a tax exemption form, like, hey, how do I fill this out? You guys, those are title documents. And again, while I can tell you this is how past clients have filled it out, or this is how we hold title, the title company, if it's a title document, they're going to be the people that you need to reach out to with those questions. So that is kind of the real estate agent. So the buyer real estate agent, the lender, and the title company. The title company is also normally where you go for signing, at least here in Hawaii. I would say like 99% of all of our signings, Clayton is going to meet you at the title company that's managing your transaction. There are a ton. There's a ton of title companies. I personally love First American Title. My escrow officer there is Nara. I've literally known and worked with her for the last 8 years, hundreds of transactions, and she moves at my speed. I will say a drawback to island life is that sometimes things are just a little slower here. Like everyone's a little more laid back, and I do love that in some instances. But in my business and for my clients, and I think just me naturally as a person, I'm like, get shit done, do it now. And she very much resonates that same vibe. So it's Nara's job to make sure that there are no issues with the title, that everything, like if you're getting any credits as a buyer, if the seller is giving you any credits, that they're applied properly to your transaction. They just do so much behind the scenes. But if you get an email from them or a packet from them or information requested from them, you need to respond to them. Again, always reach out to me if you have questions, and I might be able to give you like a fringe answer, but I'm always going to give you an answer and say, but this is a title document. This is their lane. My license doesn't really give me, the ability to tread on their territory or in their lane. The last of the four that I mentioned is the seller's agent. So there's a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, the title company, and the lender for the buyer. A lot of people think that buyer's agents and seller's agents are like enemies or like, competing against each other in a transaction because they represent two different sides. We represent different interests. But honestly, I don't operate from that viewpoint. I try very hard to encourage, and I don't know what the right word is. I try very hard to have the mindset of cooperation with the other agent, whether I'm a buyer's agent or whether I'm a seller's agent. Other agent that I'm working with has just as much to do with a successful transaction as I do. And good or bad real estate agents can sometimes really make or break a successful transaction. And so, I need them to work with me. They need me to work with them. We should be, even though we're representing different respective parties, the goal is the same for everyone. And that is, say I'm a seller's agent. The goal of mine is to sell my client's house. And they're a buyer's agent, and their goal is to get their client a home. And if they offer on a listing of mine and we are then working together, even though we're representing different people that need their own set of protections, and we always want to look out for our clients, we are still working towards a common goal. So I never approach it as like they're the enemy, or we have to be evasive with them or whatever. It's very much, they have a client who wants what my client has. My client doesn't want what they have anymore because they're selling their home. So, we're going to work with this other person to make everybody happy. And sometimes that does mean, negotiating back and forth, but it can be done professionally and respectfully and to everybody's benefit. So those are the four major components of a real estate transaction: buyer's agent, seller's agent, title company, buyer's lender. Again, everybody has their own lane, their own stuff that they're going to send you, and you should reach back out to that appropriate party with questions on whatever it is, if it's specific to them. Other sort of entities that are around in real estate: the home inspection company. I have people all the time reaching out to me with questions from the home inspection. And again, while I can normally answer them, if you have a detailed question, the home inspector puts his information on every single report that he sends out. He is the authority on that. But again, going back to a license not allowing an individual to talk about just anything, if a home inspector puts on a home inspection report that something is deficient, and to consult a licensed trade person like a plumber or an electrician or a structural person, like a structural engineer, which, to be fair, with real estate that I deal in, isn't really a thing. I've had one time a structural engineer need to be brought in to look at the structural components of a property, and it was very deep in Y&I and not like my traditional real estate. So everybody out there listening, please do not think that you're going to come to Hawaii and have like structural issues with your home. They're largely, for most of my clients, buying in like Mililani, Kapolei, Eva Beach, Makakilo, Waipio, Waikele, even Pearl City. They are like planned communities that, largely don't have great structural issues. But I digress. A home inspector, if they're telling you to defer to a licensed tradesperson, if you call them and you want to get more information on that item, whatever it is, say it's a leak or an electrical problem, they're only going to be able to tell you so much because their license only allows them to do so much. So you would need to get a hold, well, if you're a buyer and you're my client, my team gets a hold of our, preferred, plumber, electrician, whatever. We have it assessed. We get you more information. But you need to always know that, that is their lane. They do the inspection that they're licensed and trained to do. But if there are things going on that need further investigation by that licensed professional, that is kind of a license above what they have, you need to do that and then talk to that person. Same thing with the termite inspection company. The termite inspector who comes out and does the inspection is not the same person that's maybe treating for the termites. Sometimes the inspector and the actual person who's treating it are not the same. And the inspector might be able to just, like me, answer fringe questions. But if we get a termite inspection report, the actual inspector might not be the best person to talk to. You'd want to talk to somebody at the company that's going to be executing the treatment. And that's not always the case. Sometimes the termite inspector does the treatment as well. I'm just trying to highlight that, you know, if you reach out to me, or if you reach out to Clayton, or if you reach out to your escrow officer and you have a question that is something that's my lane, don't think that they're just pushing you off and not wanting to help you if they tell you, I'm sorry, that's not my lane, talk to Kendra. Or vice versa. If I say, you know, guys, this is my experience, but please contact Nara. She's our escrow officer. She can give you more information. It's not that I'm not trying to be helpful, but we all have our lanes and our licenses that allow us to discuss or not to discuss, or be the most appropriate person to discuss certain things in a real estate transaction. So I hope this was super helpful. I know it's not a horribly long episode, nothing maybe like groundbreaking here, but it is a very fundamental kind of organizational chart on real estate transactions and how we are all here to help you and how we all work together. Because ultimately, like I said, whether you're a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, the loan officer, the title company, we all are here to work together collectively to serve our clients and to get transactions from start to finish, hopefully with as little stress and as much information and peace of mind as possible. So, okay, guys, I am going to go make myself a cup of tea and go sit on my lanai, and it's still pouring outside. So I'm going to enjoy a little bit of this rainy afternoon. Unfortunately, this probably means my pickleball date is going to be canceled for this evening, but that's okay. I can try to play tomorrow. As always, like, follow, subscribe. Thank you so much. I wouldn't have any of this if it weren't for all of you. Bye, guys.